Hi there, I'm Mary Susie from Bead Me a Story. Thanks so much for joining me today for this Rococo Beaded Stretch Bracelet. So this thing is absolutely glorious. It's so full, so many beads on here. Has a nice weight to it, but not too much. And alongside all of these ruffly peanut beads, we also have, I threw in some Delica beads into this just for a little added sparkle in the end. I mean, this is Rococo, so let's go over the top. So Rococo, just to give you kind of a reference point for this, think Marie Antoinette. You know, that time period, big dresses, lots of lace, lots of ribbons, lots of decadence, lots of everything. Okay, so we're just taking our most basic chainmail weave, the shaggy loop chain, and we're kicking it up 10 notches and adding a ton of beads to it to get this really cool effect. But this is still stretchy. It's got rubber on the inside, so you do not need a clasp for this. But I would encourage you, add whatever you want to this. This is Rococo. If you want to add some bows, you want to add some rhinestones in some way, if you want to add some faceted beads, whatever you would like to add to that final step of this is going to be just fine. And this thing is going to be gorgeous no matter what you do. The other option you have too is not to make this just a single color with your beads, but to make it multiple colors and just mix them in randomly. That's going to be gorgeous too. Okay, so you have lots of design options with this, and I'm going to go through the materials now so that you can see some of the choices that you can make and where to make different choices and where to stick with the same things that I use. So the first thing we're going to need for the center row is rubber O-rings. So this is using the 5mm rubber O-ring, and these come in a pack of 40. So in the supply list I said that you're going to need 45 of these, but that is only if you have an extra large wrist. Okay, for most medium to large sizes, so I would say if you have a 7 to 7.5 inch wrist, like if you measure your wrist and you're in that zone, I think you're more than okay with just one bag of 40. But if you need to make extra large, then I would grab an extra bag of the 5mm O-rings just to be safe. Okay, or if you just get one bag and you find out later it's not quite big enough, you can always, you know, tack on another bag later. So the next thing that we're going to be using, now this, I do want everybody to use the same thing. And this is going to limit your color palette a little bit, so it's important. So these are the 20 gauge 1/8 inch silver frost jump rings. Now the reason I use these a lot, and I use these a lot in my rhinestone pieces, is because they run a little bit skinnier than the other jump rings. So the silver frost always seem to be the skinniest jump ring that I have in the 20 gauge 1/8 size. So I use this a lot, and here we're going to be going through peanut beads with these, and that's why you really want to use silver frost, because it's going to go through those beads so much easier and make your life so much simpler. Okay, but if you just want to do what you want to do, okay, another one to take a chance on would be either silver or rose gold. They're running fairly small right now. You're going to throw off a lot more beads if you use something other than silver frost, but it is doable. Okay, so you might just want to buy 2 bags instead of 1 bag, you know, because you know that not all of them are going to work for you. Okay, so silver frost, really important, and you can see we're starting with this very matte kind of finish on the inside of our bracelet. And so to go along with this, I just want to point out that the rubber O-rings come in lots and lots of colors. Okay, so there's lots of other soft colors that are kind of have a gray base tone to them, like dusky sage or pastel purple. You could also think about using white. If you want to use black, that would be a really bold statement. You could do something in like, you know, black and whites kind of thing. But there's lots of colors to choose from. And also look at the color of the O-ring and see if there is a jump ring in matte that's going to kind of pair up with it. So for example, violet is a very bold color. but we do have matte in the violet rings, and we have matte and sea foam that's going to go with the dusky sage, the pastel purple. There is a light purple. So lots of choices here. You don't have to choose what I chose. Okay, so feel free to veer off and do your own colors. The only color that you really do need to stick with is the silver frost. Okay, so this and this, the matte gunmetal and the charcoal gray, are going to make up my base row. And then I'm going to use these to attach the outside rows that have the beads on it. Okay, so loading the beads onto these silver frost jump rings is the first thing you're going to do before you start making anything. And I will go through this in the tutorial. You really don't have to worry about it. But I just wanted to point out this is going to use three bags of the peanut beads. So you can see you're going to be loading beads for quite a long time before you start putting this bracelet together. Okay, and then again, make sure that these are Matsuno peanut beads and not Miyuki berry beads. The berry beads will not work. Okay, so 3 bags of these. Now, you do not have to use all one color. You could do maybe 3 colors. The other thing I could have done is I've got 3 colors in these blues that are very similar. And so this is a lighter blue. This one's just a little bit darker. I'm sure you probably can't even see that on the screen. And then I used the opaque French blue luster, okay, which almost has like a gel kind of look to it. I actually chose to use this one because I actually like these better. I like the finish on them. But I've got a few different finishes going on in these peanut beads. And you could have chose 3 different bags, so you can do a tone on tone, or I could have perhaps done like, a light blue, there's a purple luster, and there's also a green luster. And so I could have just mixed these up and done a multitude of colors here. Okay, so you have lots of choices for what to make this with. So, be creative. I do think you're probably most likely to get this, dusky kind of gray tones because of the silver frost. But really, the sky's the limit with this thing. If you want high contrast, low contrast, whatever you want to do, that's just fine. Okay, and so the final material that's going to go into this, what I did was I used silver-lined Delica beads. Okay, and so basically I wanted to pick a bead. This was a long project, so I want to pick a bead that would go onto a jump ring, first off. But I wanted it to have a harder edge than the peanut beads. So I have this soft, curved bead paired with these cylinder beads that have a much harder edge. And these are just adding the bling factor to our bracelet, okay? And that's why I chose that. So you could choose a silver line. You could also choose a metallic to create this sparkling effect on the outside of your bracelet. So I could have chosen one of the metallic beads. The Delica beads were just updated. Got some brand new colors in for you to try. So, take a look there at what is going to match well. If you're choosing neutral tones, everything's really going to go with everything. Okay, so be bold, make bold choices. Try something different that you haven't tried before. And I will say you don't have to do a Delica bead. I just pulled out one other bead to kind of show you. These are Matubo size 7 seed beads. Okay, and these have a beautiful silver color. Silver is challenging in beads. You can see how much more yellow. This doesn't really look that yellow when you put it into things, but there is a slight yellow to the Duracoat galvanized silver colors, and even I think Toho is a little less yellow, but there's still just a slight yellowing as compared to, you can see how this color looks. Okay, so a lot of times too, titanium's a good choice. It's going to be a little bit darker silver, but just to point that out, that just because you pick silver and silver, all silvers are not the same in beads. Okay, it's a big adventure. This is an adventure in glass, what they're capable of doing in glass and making for you. the different options. So you know, experiment with different things, different kinds of beads, and see what you can come up with. But you can see that, you know, I just have, this is a cylinder bead, which is what I use. This is a more rounded bead, you know, so you can go with different shapes. I could have even looked at like cube beads or something like that, as long as I can find one that could fit onto a jump ring. So those are your supplies that you're going to need for this. And as I said, the supply list is made for an extra large bracelet, but for the most part, the only thing that's really going to change is perhaps how many O-rings you need. I think everything else, if you get a large bag and a large bag of the 2 jump ring colors, and then, you know, regardless of size, I think you're going to need 3 bags of the peanut beads, and then whatever your accent bead you choose is, you're just going to need 1 bag of that, and you probably won't use most of that. Okay, but that's really the only material in this where you're going to have lots of extras. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started making this bracelet. Okay, so the first thing we want to do to start this project is I have gone ahead and pre-opened my jump rings. Now I'm using silver frost jump rings, and for this particular project, because we are using the Matsuno peanut beads, I would recommend that you always stick with silver frost. Silver frost can run a lot skinnier than most of the other jump rings in the same size. If you've done a lot of chainmail work with aluminum, you know that from color to color and from batch to batch, the thickness of the wire in these jump rings can vary. So the one really safe bet is the silver frost. For some reason, it always seems to run a little bit smaller than the other jump rings. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up one of my jump rings, and we're just going to pick up these peanut beads one at a time and place them onto the jump ring. So I'm putting 2 peanut beads onto this jump ring, and then I'm just going to go ahead and close the jump ring. Okay, and by the time you're done doing this, you're going to be seeing peanut beads in your dreams. Because we got to do a lot. So I've kind of gotten to the point where I tend to pick up 2 of the beads in my hand at the same time and can manage to do that. But at first, you know, just pick up 1 and see how it goes, and see if you can get your jump ring through the center. Okay, and we're just going to keep mounting these and mounting these. You need tons and tons and tons. But I'm just showing you the process. These are very small. So far, I mean, I've made enough for an entire bracelet now, loaded these, and I only ran into 1 bead that I could not get through. So let's talk about when you can't get through the whole of the bead. Okay, so sometimes, even though it seems like it when you're trying to put it on, sometimes you haven't opened this jump ring quite enough. And it can not really be visible to you, but you perhaps haven't opened it enough. And the other thing too that I would do is throw that bead off to the side and try a different jump ring, because even though these are relatively uniform in size, they can vary slightly, and you know, sometimes the edge of them can vary slightly. So anyway, just keep working with this. You know, when we're using seed beads, they weren't built for chainmail. They weren't built to be put onto jump rings, so there may be some that you have to throw off to the side. However, I really didn't. I ran into 1 bead, and it was a pretty thick bead. So as you can see, the beads are going to vary slightly in size too. You can see this one is teeny tiny, and that one is a lot bigger. And if you look at it from the side, this one's a lot thicker than this other one over here. There they are, side by side. So let's do this part first. You can get this all ready. This is the bulk of the project, is loading your beads onto your jump rings, and then I'm going to show you how to make the chain. So this is what we want our chain to look like here. You can see I've got rubber O-rings in here, and that is going to make this bracelet stretchy, so you're not going to need a clasp. But you can see I've just got a 1 by 1 by 1 chain. So I've gone ahead again and pre-opened these. I'm using a different color for this inside row, and I'm just using the matte gunmetal because it's going to blend great with the gray. So I don't really want you to see this. I don't mind that you're seeing gray on the inside, but I want this all to blend together. So we need one O-ring, one jump ring, and one O-ring. Okay, I'm just going to close my jump ring. Please make sure to close your jump rings really well for this inside part, because you don't want an edge of a jump ring poking out where it's going to tear your O-rings, and you don't want a gap because that's going to catch too. So try and do the best job that you possibly can. So now I've got my O-ring, jump ring, O-ring. I'm going to go to another jump ring, so I'm going to pass through this existing row, and I'm going to pick up another O-ring. And close. Okay, so this is just a 1 by 1 chain that we're making. One O-ring, one jump ring, one O-ring, one jump ring, and so on and so forth. And you're going to want to make this the length that you need it to be. So if you have a kit, there's a size chart in there. It'll tell you exactly how long to make this, or you can just test it on your own wrist, and I would give it a little extra, probably about a ½ inch. So if, like, for example, you're a 6.5 inch wrist, then make this length 7 inches, or maybe even just a touch more, because this is going to get really full fast. Okay, so once we finish making our 1 by 1 chain, I'm going to take this away. I'm going to show you that we're just going to take those jump rings with beads, and we're going to start putting them onto here. And this is going to be a really, really full bracelet. Now when I started this, I started on the jump ring row just to leave myself an end piece, so that when I get to the end, I can match up my O-rings together with just a jump ring at the end. But this just leaves this end piece naked so that you can see it a little bit better and get to it a little bit better. Okay, so now you've kind of seen where we're going with this, that this is going to be puffy, and like I said, we're going to start on the jump ring, leave our end alone. So I'm going to be using these matte gunmetal to link the beaded pieces together. So for every matte gunmetal ring that I'm using, I'm going to pick up 2 of these silver frost jump rings that I put the beads on, and that means that there's 4 beads because I had 2 beads on each jump ring. Okay, and then I'm just going to come in here and fill in every row. So you can see the last row that I did was an O-ring row, so I'm going to go through my jump ring row and close. Okay, then I'm going to pick up another jump ring, and I'm going to go through that same row. So I'm still picking up 2 beaded jump rings, and I'm going to go to the other side. Okay. And that is 1 row filled in. So I'll just go to my next row. This is an O-ring row. It's got the rubber, but it doesn't matter. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're just going to put one of these gunmetal jump rings on one side, and then we'll put one on the other side. Okay, and then this is just as simple as that. You're just going to keep going the entire way. You can see how full this is because we're adding so many jump rings to every row. And you can see this is going to get nice and bushy and have lots of texture to it. Okay, so when you wear it, you can see that you really can't even see the inside of it. It's just beautiful and fluffy and all those things. So just keep going. Okay, keep adding these the whole way, and then I'll show you how to finish this. Okay, so you can see that I have gotten the whole length of this finished. It's so fluffy. A lot of work, but easy work, of course. And then these are my last 3 rows. So if you remember, we skipped the first row, rubber O-ring. So that would be here. And then this is going to be the joining row. So you can see I've got 3 of the matte gunmetal jump rings here. So this one is going to connect the beginning to the end. And then this is just 2 more fill rows of our shaggy loop. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take this and then see how this one on the end, make sure you don't catch anything else. So I'm just trying to catch this O-ring that was at the beginning or the end, and then we're going to catch the other one that's at the other end. Okay, now this leaves us 3 rows that we need to fill in, but we'll just close that. And then once we fill it in, you won't be able to tell where we started or where we ended or anything. My advice to you that is, as you're doing these parts, that you kind of use your pliers to pull that so that you know where the end is that you're working on. Otherwise, you can definitely lose your place pretty easily. Okay, so I'm going to take one of these matte gunmetals. These are my attaching rings. And I'm going to pick up 2 of the shaggies or the beaded pieces. I'm going to pass one through one side of this jump ring. And again, pull that out so you know where you're at. Okay. And then I need two more shaggies for the other side. Okay, so here's my O-ring I was working on right here, and I want to go through the other side. It's just like we've been doing. It's just a little bit harder to see because we're at the end and there's a lot around it. Okay, so again, let's pull this one out so we don't lose our place. Now we need these 2. Okay, and these will go through the jump ring that's on the end. So this one goes through one side of the jump ring. Okay, see how I lift and I place that to my right. This would not be the time to take a pause in your work. When you're finishing, try and get it finished up because it can be difficult with something this full to find the end again. Okay, and the other side of that jump ring. Okay, and then I just have one more O-ring left to fill in. Okay, let me lay this down. Pick up my matte gunmetal, and then my beaded jump rings. Okay, and here's my last O-ring that's not filled in. Okay, so that is one side of it. I didn't put that down very well. I just wasn't thinking. Don't lose focus. Okay. And here it is. That's our last ring to fill in. And now we have a super fluffy, stretchy bracelet. Okay, so we have finished the whole body of the bracelet, and we just have ruffles and ruffles all around, and I just love this. But I wanted to add the cherry on top. So I'm adding one more step to this. I know it's like, you know, could we fit any more beads on this thing? But yes, we can. Yes, we absolutely can. So I've got some silver lined Delica beads. I looked at a lot of different types of beads, but I like this because perhaps because we have the very round textured shape of the peanut beads. And then this is a little bit harder edge, you know, I mean, it's just a tube, just a simple plain tube. And so I think this creates a lot of sparkle. So let me show you what I'm doing. This is so fun. And this is such a subtle thing, but absolutely glorious. So I am just adding these little Delica silver line beads to add little bits of sparkle throughout this bracelet. Okay, so I looked at a lot of different areas where I could put it. What I finally decided to do was add them into the matte gunmetal jump rings that hold the rows together, so the ones that are between the rubber O-rings. Okay, and I'm going to dig down to this base layer to do this. That way my little bling things are kind of set underneath the peanuts, and then they're going to just peek out, you know, so you get these little bits of sparkle and you don't really know where they're coming from. So I think this is where I'm at. I think this was my last one. So you can see, I just want to pull this apart so you can see where I'm adding this into. So what I'm basically doing is adding them to the left hand side of where the beads are added on every single matte gunmetal that's part of this base row. Okay, so I'm going to go in right through here. So in order to do this, I went ahead and pre-opened my jump rings, of course, but it makes it easy to keep holding on to the piece because it's fairly easy, at least on my bead board it is. Everything on paper is a little bit more slippery. Okay, let me get that. Okay, so it's a little bit easier for me to keep holding the piece with my left hand and be able to pick up the bead with my right hand, and then I'm just going to slide it through this jump ring and try not to get hooked onto any of the other pieces. But like I said, this kind of embeds the little sparkle bits to the inside. Now I only plan to do 33 of these, or 34, whatever, you know, the count is for this bracelet. So there in the base row there were, for me, there was like 33 jump rings and 33 O-rings to make the length of this. So that's that center row that's just a 1x1 chain. And so I'm just adding these to like one side, but you can definitely add it to two sides. So for me to add these, that means I only needed like 34 or 33 or 34 of them to be added in. But if you want to add it to both sides, then you can. And then you're just going to need like, you know, 66 to 68 of them. Okay, but you're not adding nearly as many of these as we added with the peanut beads. So this is just, this will go by fairly quickly to finish off this bracelet. Okay, so you saw I added another one, and I just keep going around. And then if I want to add that additional row, I could like flip this over, like twist it around. Okay, so I could add them onto this side, but I'm not going to. I think it's sufficient to have these just on one side, because you know you're not going to see both sides of the bracelet all at the same time, and you know, this has a lot of weight to it already, so I'd rather add less weight than more weight. Okay, so just keep going around, add your silver line Delica beads. I will mention I use silver line, of course, that looks beautiful with these colors, and like you can see a sparkle over here, and right now I can see a sparkle over here. You never know where they're going to pop up and give you a little bit of shine. But I just do want to mention that I believe that the silver line Delicas come in several colors too. So if you decide to work with other colors, I'm pretty sure I had seen red, so we could probably get you some colors in the silver line Delicas if you need them. Just ask. But I think for if you're using these subtle colors and the Rococo kind of colors, then I think that the plain old silver line is sufficient to just add a little something. I thought about adding bows to this. You could add little charms to this. You could add some rhinestones to this. My goal really, because I spent a lot of time making this bracelet, it took a really long time. I didn't want to add anything where I had to do a head pin or an eye pin. So in this way, the Delica worked great because it was just the same jump rings I was using. So if you have leftover at the end of making the bracelet, then you can always add some Delica beads. And of course too, you can use metallics as well, and they would be just as shiny as the silver lined are. I just thought the silver line was fun in this. Okay, so really have some fun with this, see what you can add to it, make it the style you want it to be, because this bracelet is just a good time, and you're gonna have a great time wearing it because it feels great on. Definitely has some weight to it without having to worry about the clasp or any of that business. So anyway, I hope you had a great time making this. I absolutely love this project and how it turned out. This is not going to be a kit. However, just remember that we do list all of the supplies for you so that you can make this yourself, and you can make it in the sizes that you need it to be. Okay, so thanks so much for joining me today, and I will see you next time. Please be sure to like and follow us on YouTube, and of course all of the supplies that you see here are available at beadmeastory.com.